All right, everyone, let's get this party started. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Real quick, most of you know we have a Facebook page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group at Doylestown. It's really powerful. Keeps everybody connected. Let them know what's going on in the events. If you have anything that's going on in AA, any anniversaries, I love anniversaries. Post them in there. I always say free food and a half-decent speaker, I'm in. I'm traveling. I'm a real alcoholic, There's a lot of other things, too. A guy posted, I don't know if he's even here tonight. Need a ride here tonight? If you need rides or you're willing to give rides, that'd be a great thing to post in there because people are always, without licenses, a great way to hook up with people and bring them along and let them have a night out, a little different than what they're normally used to, right? That's a great way to do that. What else we got going on? YouTube page, speakers posted on there. You can listen to that. You can share that. It's really easy to find the Conscious Contact Speaker Group at Doylestown. YouTube page. Our sister group is a big book study. Meets right over here, a mile down the road, not even a mile, probably a quarter mile. It's the Big Book Study Solution Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we go line by line. It's every Thursday night at 7:30. It's pretty cool. We go an hour without a complaint, without any profanity. It's pretty cool. We just talk about recovery there. People get better. If you never experienced that, come over and see us in this room here on Monday night, 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, there's a step meeting, literature step. Well, we try to bring in a different speaker each week. They'll speak on the step, and then we open it up for discussion or questions. It's pretty cool. And so there's a lot of things going on. And also an Al-Anon meeting here. So if any of you guys have family or friends or people struggling, send them over at 7:30. It's pretty nice to be around that. It's a pretty good support group. Anyway, Teresa's going to come up here and chair, and let's get going. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Teresa, and I'm an alcoholic. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday right here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church at 8:30 p.m. in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 o'clock. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. The purpose of the group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town who would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Well, welcome everybody. Nice to see you again. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD donations. If you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, see me or any home group member after the meeting. They are available free of charge. And at this time, Sherry is going to come up and read the preamble.
Hi, I'm Sherry. I'm an alcoholic. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denominations, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I have asked Miss Kara to come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Kara, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. So good to see everybody tonight. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Number 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible except when to or so would injure them or others. Number 10, continued to take personal inventory when we were wrong, properly admitted it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. Now I'm going to ask Teresa to come back up. Thank you.
Our second tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. A reminder that there is absolutely no smoking on the church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And at this time, I would like to introduce a very good friend to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, Bobby C. from the Franklin Town Group.
My name is Bobby Coyle. I'm an alcoholic. Through the grace of God, the 12 steps in sponsorship. I've been sober since June 2nd of 1988. For that, I'm grateful. I always add, so are my neighbors. My neighbors, they are so grateful I'm sober. I have a home group. It's the Franklin Town Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. We meet at 2044 Fairmount Avenue, right across the street from the Eastern State Penitentiary. Wednesdays at 6:30 we have a speaker meeting. Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon at 5:30 we have a big book meeting. And Sunday morning at 9:30, we have a step meeting with the last Sunday of the month being a tradition meeting. And we're actually back full. We've probably been back I think back in June we reopened. So we're actually hybrid. You can come in person, you come check us out on Zoom. Chapter 5 is real clear. I'm supposed to tell you in a general way what my life was like as an active alcoholic, what happened to me, what my life is like today as an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And before I go any further, I'd like to thank Ron for inviting me to speak. I've been here before. It's been several years since I've been here. But it's always a privilege to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous. I can tell you towards the end of my drinking, I was invited to leave. That was it. I wasn't invited anywhere else. I was invited to leave. So this is it. Born and raised in the city. I'm one of 8. My mother was pregnant for 11 years, and she was. I have a sister who is 11 months older than me. I am 11 months older than my next sister. There's 8 of us in like a 10.5-year span. None of this Irish twins. This is Irish octuplets. and we were not the biggest family on the block. That was not unusual back then. So my mother could not drink besides being pregnant all those years, but she also suffered from a history of mental illness and abused prescription medication. And my father, who never had a drink, was smart enough not to have any booze in the house. But my grandparents lived around the corner from us, and their basement was finished into a bar, and that's where all the parties were. The family functions, the christenings, the graduations, and there was always a party. My father was one of 12, my mother from a much smaller family, she was one of 11, and there was always a party, and that's where I had my first drink. I didn't get drunk when the first drink I had. I was just a kid, but I remember what it was. It was Ballantine beer. And I remember that because my father used to take me up to Connie Mack Stadium, and Ballantine sponsored the Phillies, and they had this old scoreboard in right center field, like with their 3 rings, their logos. And I'm running around the basement bar polishing off the half empties or the half full. And then I just, my uncles look at, they pointed me out. And I never felt a part of. And that's pretty tough to do when you have 10 people living in a small 3-bedroom row home. But I never felt a part of, and that would be true even into early recovery. My grandparents were, actually both sets of my grandparents were immigrants. Kids from the neighborhood used to make fun of them, the way they spoke, but I just loved my grandparents. And I couldn't wait till I get older so I can partake, the music, everything. I just loved the celebrations. So being children of immigrants, my parents knew really the only way to make it in this country was by education, and they made a great deal of sacrifice to send my brothers and I to a private school. So in my neighborhood, the local diocesan high school was either Bishop Neumann or Roman Catholic, depending what year you graduated from grade school. But I went to St. Joe's Prep, and my parents, I went to the prep, and most of the kids who went to the school were from affluent families from the suburbs. Just me and a couple of the dirtballs from the neighborhood went to the school, and right away we were terrorizing kids. A lot of these guys, it was their first introduction to the inner city as they were getting dropped off by their parents in their luxury automobiles. Me and the guys from the neighborhood were inside robbing their lockers. And I knew that was wrong, by the values instilled in me, by the nonsense that came in by my parents. But the need for me to be accepted by you outweighed anything else. And I'm compromising values and principles long before I had a drink. One of my nicknames was Crazy Coil. And I would do things I knew I felt uncomfortable doing it, but I was like your entertainment, and I certainly didn't want to disappoint you. So, and we did other things, like we sold football pools, and if you hit, we wouldn't pay off. But you kept coming back. You want to buy a particular substance? We sold you a substitute substance. And you kept coming back. I mean, we went through more oregano than a pizzeria. We thought we were gangsters. We were idiots. That's what we were. But we certainly terrified those kids. And I drank on the weekends. And there's only one reason. I didn't drink every night. And there's a very good reason for that. Because I wasn't allowed out on school nights. So, and if I was allowed out on school nights, I probably would have drank on school nights too. But I just drank on the weekends. And as you know, it's hard to drink because the drinking age in the Commonwealth has always been 21. The drinking age at that time in Jersey was 18. And, like junior year in high school on the weekends, we'd go over Jersey and drink, And when it came time to graduate back up at the prep, I wasn't making the dean's list, but I wasn't failing out either. I was doing the bare minimum effort required to get by. I didn't, mediocrity was my goal. I did enough work to keep the heat off my back, and that's all I was content in doing. And when it came time to graduate from the prep, I really had no desire to further my education, and I knew that would cause some problems at home because my parents made this great deal of sacrifice, And I don't like, it would cause problems, and I don't like to catch hell, I like to create hell, but I don't like to catch hell for my behavior. So I knew I couldn't stay home, but I'm 17, no money, no skills. What do? I'll join the service. And I thought that was a smart move, and it wasn't a smart move. And not to talk politics, but I'm going to set the scene real quick. Vietnam had just ended. Jimmy Carter was the president, and the military was not popular. This was in the 70s. But when I graduated from the prep, I joined the Air Force. And I went through all this training, and now I got sent overseas. And that's when my drinking really took off. I never messed around with other substances. I never even smoked a joint. There were a lot of guys from my neighborhood who got drafted and got hooked on things. And I had a fear of other substances. But before I went in, even though I only drank on the weekend, I had a drinking problem, And that's all I knew, And so when I got sent overseas, and when I was on duty, when we were on duty, I was squared away. But off duty, I was getting loaded every moment, And I was deployed. I was there. It was 8-10 weeks tops, and there was an incident in which 3 of my closest friends got killed, and I don't know how to handle that because in my family we don't talk about nothing. And once you moved out of the house, whether you went to get married or you went, moved away to school, whatever the case may be, you were no longer privy to the secrets of the family. everything stayed within the walls of the house and everything stayed inside you. And that's not a shot at my folks. That's just the way it was. You just don't tell anybody anything. And when my friends got killed, and I know there was help extended to me, but I kept people at bay. And I just continued on drinking. Drink to numb the pain. My enlistment was up. I came home. I enrolled in school. I went to St. Joe's. Wound up taking a couple civil service exams for the city. And I remember it was my freshman year at St. Joe's. It was the second semester, spring semester. And the kid from the neighborhood called me up. He said, Bobby, the Phillies are playing tomorrow. One of those business main specials, mid-afternoon, mid-week game. He said, you want to go? I said, sure. I mean, even back then at St. Joe's, 15, 20 kids in the classroom. I'm not an active participant. No one's going to miss me. Same thing, I'm not making the dean's list, but I'm not failing out either. So I cut class, I went to the game, and the Phillies have since moved. They're playing at Vet Stadium down in South Philly. And me and 4 guys from the neighborhood, we're at the top of that stadium, 700 level, drinking that cheap, watered-down beer. And the sun's beating down on me, and I'm getting kind of trashed. And I turned to the guys and I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to run down the field and meet one of the players. And they kind of shrugged me off because another nickname I had was like Bullshit Bob. I mean, I lied about everything. I lied. I was better suited to tell the truth. I swear, I lied about my ethnic heritage. Now, one look at me, I'm as Irish as Paddy's pig, right? There's no doubt about it. But in my neighborhood, we had a lot of social clubs, usually based on ethnics, or they were like, VFWs or posts like that. In my experience, most of those clubs, they're really nothing but speakeasies. Back when we had the blue laws in Pennsylvania, when it was hard to drink on Sunday, you went to the VFW, you went to one of the Italian American clubs, one of those clubs. Well, one of the clubs was the Yuki Club, the Ukrainian American Social Club, Yuki Club. So I'm in there drinking, and I don't know why, but I just felt compelled to tell the bartender. I said, my mother's Ukrainian. Now, he didn't ask me, no one carded me, no one questioned, and he just looked at me, and I forgot all about it. My brother Brian and we were in there about a month later. We come in, and the bartender said, here comes Bobby the Yugi. My brother's head turned around so quickly. He said, what the hell did you tell that guy? I said, I don't know, I've never seen him before. But, it just shows you that my lack of self-esteem, I had no sense of self. I didn't think you would like me for who I was. So I always constantly reinventing myself, And it was just nuts. So I worked my way down to we used to have the picnic areas in the left field and the right field corner of the vet. And I jumped the fence, I ran into the picnic area, and then I hurdled the fence, and I ran across the outfield. Now, I'm in center field before I realized what I had done, but by then it's too late. You got to commit. You got to finish. And I run across, and the San Diego Padres were in town, and Dave Winfield was the right fielder for the Padres. And I go out, I shake his hand, I say, hey, Dave, how you doing? And he looked at me and said, brother, what are you doing out here? And from behind him, he's a pretty big dude. From behind him, I saw the guards coming. I said, Dave, I got to go now. And I start running towards the infield, and I want to slide into second base. I don't know. I just thought that'd be a pretty cool thing to do. And as I was running towards the infield, there was more guards coming from the third base side, and I knew I couldn't slide in a second because I got caught. So I did a little turn and started going towards first base. And at this point, like it's a slow trot, like giving myself up, right? And I'm about 10 feet from the guards. They were coming, and I deked them, and I ran out in the outfield again. And I'm running around like a lunatic. It seemed like 10 minutes, but it's closer to 2 or 3, right? But these guards, these young, short, fat guys from South Philly, they're tripping over each other. It looks like Keystone Cops. I'm in the best shape of my life. I just came home, but I got nowhere to go. The fence is 12 feet high. I'm drunk. I'm out of breath. I'm actually about to get sick. So I just stopped waiting. I stopped running around and waited out in the center field. And when the guards came and escorted me off the field, I got a standing ovation from 37,000 people. The place was going nuts, And as they were taking me up to the right field bullpen, Tug McGraw was in the bullpen, and the Tugger gave me the thumbs up. And I'd like to think he was loaded, because Tug had a reputation for knocking them back. Now, I knew these guards were going to beat me because I made them look so stupid, and I was okay with that, I was just hoping, this would be the type of story I'd drink for free. For at least a week. I actually pictured this, walking into the bar, shot glasses up in front of me, I'd be set. But this also be the type of story I'd make up, Bullshit Bob. But I had those 4 guys from the neighborhood, and I knew they would have my back. So just as I was about to get my beating, a Philadelphia police lieutenant showed up. He said, "What's the matter with you?" He said, "Are you drunk? Are you high?" I said, "No, man, I'm just happy to be here." I said, "I just got out of service, was overseas, just got home. I'm just happy to be here." He said, "Well, you better get your happy ass out of the stadium." So not only did he save me from getting a beating, but he saved me from getting arrested. And that would be important because 5-6 weeks later, one of those civil service exams kind of panned out. And I got hired by the Philadelphia Police Department. They were hiring anybody back then, you know. And I tell that story for a couple different reasons. One, first of all, it's the only funny story I got. I wasn't a funny guy. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't a lover. I was a lying, thieving, stinking, phone down, violent drunk. And if I hung around you, you had something I wanted. I used and abused everybody I came in contact with. I was a creep in all areas of my life. Secondly, it's a true story. Those 4 guys that were with me, 2 of them are now sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I am so glad when the first one showed up, because I know you guys were doubting me. I don't know why. But yeah, they had my back. But thirdly, and even more importantly, I was a blackout drinker. There was a lot of things about my drinking I don't remember. And I didn't even know about blackouts. I spent almost 6 months in various VA hospitals. And that's how I got introduced to recovery. And I remember I was up at Coatesville, and the doctor came up to me, was talking, and he said, "Did you ever have any blackouts?" I said, "Nope." I must have answered too quickly. He said, "Do you know what they are?" I said, "Nope." Once he described them, I said, "All the time." I just thought that was normal. Like Thursday's payday for the city, I'd wake up on Friday like with 3 crumpled ones and 5 quarters on the dresser. Like, where'd the check go? And who are you? And where did I park my car? I just thought that was normal. I would remember coming up to the corner, and guys I was with that night before would tell me what the stunts I pulled. And I would repeat those stories like I had memory myself. I was a blackout drinker from the very first start, you know. So I spent the first part of my career up in North Philadelphia, and I would see the ravages of alcoholism and drug addiction day in, day out. And at the end of the tour, I would go out with guys in the squad and drink. I saw things on the job that bothered me, but I couldn't tell my coworkers that because I didn't want to be thought less than, to the point where I engaged in behaviors I knew was wrong. The way I spoke to people, the way I treated people. And the handwriting is on the wall. One day, my immediate supervisor pulled me off to the side and said, "You know what, kid, you're smart and you're going to go places, but that booze is going to mess you up. In one ear, not the other." I'm at a family function one night. My uncle was the boss in the job. He pulled me off to the side. He said, "Bobby, I'm hearing stories about you. You're going to get yourself in a jackpot. You better slow down. Take it easy. In one ear, not the other." Several years later, after I got sober, on 2 separate occasions, I ran into that supervisor and my uncle in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember running into my uncle, and I said, "Yo, Unc, how come you didn't tell me?" Because I realized what they were trying to do. They were giving me a heads up, right? Trying to 12-step me. I said, "Yo, Unc, how come you didn't tell me?" And he just gave me one of them old-timer smiles. He said, "Bobby, you just weren't ready yet." Which just goes to show you that all the drinking and all the nonsense were necessary for me to hit my bottom, you know. I mean, we're always the last people to figure it out, right? I was involved in an incident when I was 23 years old in which a 15-year-old kid lost his life, and I used it as an excuse to crawl the bottle, and that's what I would do for the next 3 years. I wound up getting sober when I was 27. Drinking took me to a lot of nevers, and one of those nevers was actually drinking on the job. I wound up getting promoted, and I was doing this type of work where I thought I needed to maintain some sort of illusion, so I was drinking on the job. And I would never do this before because I was squared away, you know, leather, all shiny, but no, I'm drinking, so it's just nuts. And then one night I was put in a position where I thought I needed to do other substances, and that's where my drinking took me. The use of other substances. I would never do this. This was the red line that I crossed. My use of other substances is very short, 15, 16 months max, and out of respect for the tradition, that's why I need to talk about that stuff. So please feel free to use your imagination. But that's where my drinking took me, you know. Memorial Day weekend, 1988, me and the guys I worked with, we were in some trouble. We'd go to a bar, get a story straight, and just another drinking nightmare, you know. One of the guys I was with decided he needed to go home, God forbid, take care of some sort of family obligation. I offered to give him a ride home. I didn't think that I was as impaired as he was. And so I'm driving, and it's not my car, it's a city vehicle, and I'm going to show off my driving skills because that's the type of guy I am. I'm a show-off. I'm an arrogant SOB. And I'm driving out this narrow one-way street, and there's a big stone wall on my left-hand side, and there's a kid riding towards me on a bicycle. And for some reason, I thought it'd be funny for this kid to jump the curb and grab the wall. Didn't know why I thought that'd be funny, I just thought it would be. But unfortunately, at the last second, we turned in the same direction. I ran that kid over. As he lied bleeding on the hood of my car, I got out of my car with my nightstick and was going to beat this kid because I thought he was going to milk me or the city for an insurance claim. The guy I was with prevented me from doing that. I took this kid off the hood of my car, threw him on the side of the street like a piece of trash. I pulled this crumpled bicycle from underneath my car, threw that off the side of the street like a piece of trash. I drove back to the bar, made some sort of smart aleck remark, and I continued on drinking. When I came to the next day, I realized I was in serious trouble, but I didn't think anybody helped me because I was such a creep. And I am. I'm a creep in all areas of my life. So I didn't know what to do. So what I did do, I got a bottle of liquor, a case of beer, and some other substances, and I checked into a hotel with the intention to consume all this stuff to build up the courage to end my life. And 3 days later, they're knocking on the hotel. I guess that's all I had the money for. And everything's gone. The booze is gone. The other substance is gone. And at this point, I'd been suspended from my job, so I no longer have access to my weapons. I couldn't shoot myself. So I walk over I open up the window. I'm on the 5th floor, and I was going to jump out the window to end my life. And I opened up the window, and I looked outside. I was on the 5th floor, and I remembered I was scared of heights. You know, I made 23 jumps. I never overcame my fear of heights. So I went in the bathroom and I filled the bathtub with water and had a blow dryer, and I was going to pull the blow dryer into the tub to make it appear an accident of electrocution. But every time I pulled the blow dryer into the tub, it would come unplugged. I was about a foot and a half short on cord, and I got 1 foot in the tub and I'm trying to plug it in. And how you accidentally electrocute yourself in the bathtub, I don't know, but that's just... And it's okay to laugh, but I just want to tell you how pathetic I was. Believe me, I was in a bad spot. So the only other tool that I had left was my car. So when I took a spin through the neighborhood, I went where I went to grade school, the corner I hung on. I started up the Falls Bridge. I come down the East River Drive, and with the intent to go in the oncoming traffic to end my life. And so I'm coming down the drive, and it was like a Wednesday, Thursday, late morning, and that would be important because if it was any other time, I would have probably succeeded what I set out to do. And the drive, I don't think the speed limit was ever more than 30, 35. And I'm probably doing 50. I'm cooked. I'm out of my mind coming down. And I wanted to go on oncoming traffic, head-on collision, because I handle jobs like that. That would do the trick. And thankfully, there was no traffic there. But I decided I would wrap myself around one of these trees. I handle jobs like this. You hit the tree. Actually, if you hit the tree just about right, you could split the vehicle in half and you're not belted in. You get ejected, you get struck by a vehicle. That would do the trick. And just then, I just lost it. I just started crying. And I'm surprised I didn't get into an accident because I had no control. But I finally, at the end of the East River Drive, is Boathouse Road, and I drove my car up on the sidewalk and I just sobbed like a baby. And about 4 or 5 weeks before, I was sitting home from work one day, and I'm reading the Daily News, and there was an article, and at the end of the article was a series of questions. It said drug problems, alcohol problems, marital problems, depression, plus a suicide. And we talk about the moment of clarity. As soon as it came, it quickly left. But something made me cut that ad out, and I stuck it in my wallet, and I continued on drinking. So here it is, 5-6 weeks later. I sit behind the wheel of my car, and I'm just crying like a baby. I reach into my glove box because I always had the extra gun there, and the gun's not there. Who knows what the hell I did with that. But my wallet, inside the wallet, was that article that I clipped out of the Daily News. And this is no longer there, but outside the last boathouse is one of those old Gleiser closed phone booths. And I dialed the phone number up, and the woman who answered the phone, I spoke to this lady like I spoke to no one in my life before. I told her the truth. I told her everything going on in my sad, miserable life, and God bless her, she listened patiently. And she said, listen, why don't you drive over to Honolulu? Somebody will talk to you. And that was like about a 5-minute ride for me, and they were waiting for me, and they admitted me to the 10th Florida psychiatric unit. And they kept me there for about 3 or 4 days. It got me kind of stabilized. And from there, I got transferred to the VA hospital out in 38th and Woodland. And I spent about 6 weeks in their flight deck. And from there, I got transferred to the VA hospital out in Coatesville, where I would spend another few weeks in their flight deck before they put me in the alcohol and drug ward. When I pulled over that day and made that phone call, Alcoholics Anonymous was the furthest thing from my mind. I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. You know, I thought my problem was the short use of other substances. If I left this crap alone, I'd be okay. Maybe I got this mental illness, and I heard this from my mother. Maybe I got this stress disorder they're talking about. I got this in the job. I got this in the service. Maybe it's the neighborhood I live in. Maybe it's the fact that I'm a mummer. I don't know, but I can't. Alcohol. I can't be an alcoholic because I'm a beer drinker. And you can't be an alcoholic drinking beer. I mean, the only time I drank hard liquor was like on St. Patty's Day, or New Year's Day, or payday. But I was a beer drinker, and beer really doesn't count. You know. So, but I was just nuts. When I got put in the alcohol and drug ward, it's the first time in about 6-7 weeks the handles are on both sides of the door, and it's amazing how quickly the arrogance comes back in a guy like me. So I got to scalp the lay of the land. And I do. I wander into the day room. And up on the day room wall, they have the large window shades of the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. And I zip through those steps. You know, I had about half of them done. CD amends, they're screwed. That won't be happening. That's a sign of weakness in my neighborhood. No amends. And later that night, 2 men came up, and I would later find out that they were part of the treatment facility committee. I did not know that then. They came up to carry the message. The moment that the speaker said something about his background that I could not identify with, did not relate, did not like, I would immediately tune him out. Too busy to listen to the messenger and not the message. Now I start looking around the community, my peers, and I realized the decision to do something about my drinking was definitely premature. I mean, they're older guys. 30s and 40s, Christ, there may have been someone in their 50s. I said, oh my God, what am I doing here? And these guys were talking about how their wives hated them and their kids hated them. And I never married, I didn't have children, so I chalked that. I just can't identify. And they talked about legal issues, and I didn't have any legal issues due to the fact I had a gold shield on my back pocket. And employment issues, I didn't have any employment issues. I just had the employer. I went from high school to the Air Force to the city. I'm still employed with the city, almost 40 years. And I'm looking for the differences and not the similarities. But what bothered me the most, without any question, when you all got in a circle and held hands and said the Lord's Prayer. If this is what you were about, I definitely didn't want nothing to do with you. And I hated God. And there were a lot of reasons I hated God, and they were all legitimate. So I now know what the chairperson said for those who care to join. But my misdirected resentment at organized religion was so great that I couldn't hear that. And I couldn't respect your right to pray. And I would not hold hands. I broke away from the circle, and I would kick chairs. I would make noise to let you know I was uncomfortable. And the night before I got discharged, the nurse came up to me. She had to be a member of Al-Anon. She was just a beautiful lady who saw all through my BS. And she said, the only way you're going to make it, you're going to need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I need to tell you that's the best piece of advice I would get. And that's where I would get my recovery. I got it in Alcoholics Anonymous, not at the VA hospital. The VA hospital did tremendous work. They drained the oil, they tightened the bolts, they hooked me up. But I would get my recovery in AA. And I go to AA every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, depending when I was working. I don't drink coffee. I've never had to this day. Never had a cup of coffee in my life. So I don't make it. Just type of dude I am. Cigarettes, ashtrays. I'm not emptying ashtrays. I know that's not a big deal now. 33 years ago, that was a service position. I'm not emptying ashtrays. I never smoked a cigarette in my life. To this day, never smoked a cigarette. I'm not emptying ashtrays. Big book meetings or step meetings, strictly by accident. I would leave at the break. I had something more important to do. Tradition meetings, absolutely not. Rules, my line of work. We like to enforce the rules. We don't like to follow the rules. The rules are for other people. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in war stories, speaker stories. But the moment that the speaker said something about his background I didn't like, couldn't relate to, didn't identify, I would immediately tune him out. Too busy listening to the messenger, not the message. But I was a meeting maker, and I was crazy as a bedbug. I was just nuts. So I'm sitting as my 1 year sobriety comes. And in my home group, you would tell your story. And I got done. It was amazing. Thunderous applause. The blind could see. The lame walked. It was truly miraculous. And people came up and they patted me back and they told me how well I was doing. And I was dying inside. Because I lied during the entire story. Because first of all, I identified myself as an alcoholic because that was the group conscience at the time. And I really didn't believe I was an alcoholic. Again, short use of other substances, mental illness, stress disorder, being a mummer, I don't know. I can't be an alcoholic, right? And back during the course of my story, a bottle of beer appeared. But you guys didn't want to hear this. And I think one of the advantages of getting sober young, I didn't fry all the cells. So I'm sure I sounded like the second coming of Bill Wilson. But the deal was I wasn't sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I was just quoting stuff in the book that I had no experience whatsoever. And you patted me in the back and you told me how well I was doing. And I was dying inside. 23 months sober, making regular attendance meetings in rooms with Alcoholics Anonymous, I beat another man with a baseball bat. I used to flippantly say, I forget what step I was working that day, but I realize when I make that flippant remark, it takes away from the seriousness and the viciousness of that attack. My second anniversary came and went. I did not celebrate it. 1 month after my second anniversary, I wanted to eat my gun. The same pathetic feeling I had 25 months before, but 25 months before I'm loaded with drugs and alcohol. Here I am, stone cold sober, in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I wanted to take my life. Safe to assume my life was unmanageable. Did I say he didn't have a sponsor? To kind of figure that out. I didn't have a sponsor. I mean, I had one in name only in case anyone questioned me, who's your sponsor? There he goes. And whenever I would sit in the meeting, he'd say, Bobby, I still get that same phone number. I said, yeah, I'll give you a call. We used to have a test back then before cell phones. We'd ask you, what's your sponsor's phone number? That, first of all, it was only 7 digits then. But if you didn't know it by heart, chances are you weren't calling your sponsor enough. Now we just program everything in the damn phone. I don't know if anyone recognizes numbers, but it was just nuts. So I'm at this meeting Friday night, Wissonoming meeting, and there was a guy from my neighborhood whose nickname was Troubles. That's a hard-earned nickname. And he was in and out of jail in the 60s and the 70s. And I saw him at this meeting, and at the end of the meeting, I go up to him. I said, Bobby, because he didn't want to be called Troubles. And this was a tough dude. And he had a lot of jailhouse things, but he wore long-sleeve shirts, and he didn't curse. I was using the F word as a noun, a verb, and an adjective. I mean, he had no and he was a tough dude, but he carried himself. He was a gentleman the way he carried himself. He didn't have to impress people. And he knew what I was doing, because my neighborhood was getting gentrified. The yuppies were coming in. I was running circles around the yuppies, and he knew that. So I go up to him afterwards. I said, Bobby, I need some help. I said, would you be my sponsor? And he looked me dead in my eye. He said, Bobby, I've been watching you these past 2 years. And I said, yeah, he kind of likes me. He says, I need to tell you, you're full of shit. That's not the response I'm looking for. But what he says, I will help you. I will be your sponsor under certain conditions. A, you're going to call me every single day. You're going to go to a big book meeting. You're going to go to a men's meeting. You're going to get your step meeting. You're going to get yourself a coffee commitment. You're going to leave them damn women alone. And I'm talking to myself. Who's he talking to? I'm sober 25 months. I'm selling the grapevines. I got it going on. So what I did do, I looked him dead in the eye. I said, okay. He took me back to his house that night. And it's funny, because I never heard the guy curse. Boy, he broke it out. He must have saved it all for me. He told me I didn't know anything. I should just shut the hell up. And that night we went through the first 3 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I want to eat my gun. Safe to assume my life was unmanageable. I did believe I was powerless, but I think the unmanageability, it depended what day of the week. And if that was the problem, then the solution had to be power greater than myself. I didn't need to read that for 30 days or hop on one leg and chant to the east. I mean, if you identify the problem, that's the solution. If your car's out of gas, you know what the solution is. Get some gas. Same thing. So if I'm powerless, the solution, get some power. And the third step, that night, we got on our knees and did the third step prayer together. Now, I want to let you know, I was very uncomfortable doing this. But there was a part of me, because I knew this is the way this guy used to live, and he wasn't living that way anymore. So I knew that I was safe with him, but I wasn't buying it either. Like, I just had the reservation, And when we got done, when we got off our knees off the prayer, he said, Bobby, the way we do a third step, we pick paper and pen up and do a fourth step. I said, whoa. Easy does it. Let's keep this simple. How about I just don't drink and go to a meeting? And I know what the purpose of the slogans are, but I'm twisting around and not doing any work. And I don't want to do one of these inventories. I mean, I'm going to meetings and people say, doing the fourth step, stirring stuff up. I want to stick a gun in my mouth. You can't get no further out than that, you know. So the last 15 minutes, I want to tell you what my life is like being sober after getting involved in the program. So I can't just summarize the rest of the steps. I changed. You know, the obsession to take a drink has been removed. The obsession to take my life has been removed. The obsession for me to take anybody else's life on most days has been removed. I just got into them, and then I got involved in service, and then I learned about the traditions, and I love the traditions. The traditions are to the group, what the steps are to the individual. You know, the steps how it works, the traditions are why it works. And the great thing about the traditions, they allows us to make mistakes. In fact, the traditions came about after us making mistakes for our first 10, 15 years, you know. Then I got involved in service. Then I started going to meetings outside my neighborhood. And you know, Philly is a very parochial city. You know, you don't go out of your neighborhood. I mean, there were 5 Catholic churches within 3 blocks of the house I grew up in. God forbid we pray with anybody else. We all wanted Mass in our own particular language. But then I started going to meetings in other parts of the city. So, wow. I would go up to the Northeast. First of all their meetings were an hour and a half. So I don't like this. You know, and then they used to pass a copybook around, and you would write your name on it. On one side, they would have line down the center. And one side for people less than a year, and the other side for more than a year. I says, I don't know about this either. But, you know, and then some people would open up with the Serenity Prayer. I said, well, we close with the Serenity Prayer. They're doing it wrong. They're not doing it wrong. They're just doing it differently. And that's what I like about AA. It's like bars. You know, there's biker bars. There's cop bars. There's gay bars. I mean, you weren't comfortable in every bar. Dive bars, you know. I mean, the same thing in AA, you know. I mean, we're fortunate. We have 1,600 meetings a week in the 5-county area. I mean, no excuse not to find a meeting. And, you know, I've never been to a bad meeting. I've been to some meetings I've never been back to, but I've never been to a bad meeting. You know, you try. It's all a matter of perspective, right? There's the glass half full or half empty. You know, we learn from everything. So, but then I got involved in service, and I was 27 when I got sober, so I did a lot of young people's ICIPA, the International Conference of Young People in AA. My first conference was in 1989 in Salt Lake City, and I've been to one just about every year. You know. And things are happening. My life, going back to school and things, but I'm getting older, right? I'm 30, and I'm 40, and then I turn 50. I said, damn, like where did the time go? And it flies too. And I remember on my 50th birthday, I was out in Arizona at their state convention, and a friend of mine, Billy, he and I, we were out there, and I think it's natural on birthdays or anniversaries to just take stock and, you know, just take inventory. But however, what I was doing, I was being a little morose, and I was comparing myself to other people, and that's never a good thing. Never married, no children. So, man, I had a tough day. The next day, September 7th, I was cool. September 6th was a tough day. So, and then the next day, I said, okay, I won't marry, no kids, and I'll be the cool uncle, and I'm okay with that. And the old adage, you want to find out God has a sense of humor, tell him your plans. So I dated my sponsor for a long time, Dick Martin, lived in Bellevue, Nebraska, and I would go out there. And so I was out there in 2002, and I met a young woman, Libby, and we had a whirlwind romance. And the great thing about it, I love long-distance romances, and I'll tell you why. First of all, it really wasn't a romance, more a torrid affair. But because I was immature. I didn't have the capability of having intimate. And so when you're 1,500 miles, that's pretty cool. I mean, if you could be married and live in different houses, I think some of us would buy. Yeah, I can go for that. Yeah. So we dated for a year, and then I ended like an idiot. And every year I would go out to Nebraska several times a year. She was out dating someone, or I was dating someone, and so I'm out there in 2010. Again, my same friend Billy, and Billy there was a conference out there called Luck of the Irish. You can't make this stuff up, right? God's sake. So it's March of 2010, and Billy was on the board of General Service, so he couldn't make it. It was a board weekend. He was supposed to speak, so he couldn't make it. So I pitched it for him, and I went out there, and I see Libby again. So 8 years. I need to tell you, there was an age difference between Libby and I. 20 years. And so when I met her, she was 22, I was 42, her parents were 52. And her parents could not be any more kinder. And my friends are all high-fiving. But you know what? Truth was, I was uncomfortable with the age difference. I was just uncomfortable. I mean, it was cool for a little bit, but after a while, when you have to start talking, I mean, it's 20 years is a big difference, right? And so 2010, so 8 years later, so now she's 8 years older, and she's sober 8 more years, and we're still 20 years different. So, we just start, a little flirting back and forth. And, however, she had a boyfriend, so it was just playful, nothing disrespectful, because I need to be honest, I had a lot of issues with women, double-digit years of sobriety, and I always said consenting adults, and that was the case, but my behavior was still creepy. Where I needed, the steps helped me a lot, but I needed some outside help to address some of my behavior, because it certainly wasn't appropriate behavior. So we start dating again, and it was pretty cool. And we're out in Orange County, California, and we're out there for a conference, and I said, I want to marry you. Not like real AAs, like a week later. I said, no, I want to date you first. And we dated. We dated for almost 10 months before there was any physical activity, because we already knew how to do that. We actually dated. And so November, next month, I'm going to celebrate 10 years of marriage. I got married at the age of 51 for the first time. And I'm hoping the only time. And I'm glad I waited as long as I did, because if I did it one day sooner, I would have blown it. And I need to tell you, I love my wife. My wife is a solid member of Alcoholics Anonymous. She came from a very tight-knit AA community in Nebraska. She moved to Philly. She had a tough time. You women aren't nice to each other. She had a tough time. And she also didn't take my last name. And I was okay with that. She's one of the strong, independent women. So, and she wanted to go to her own meetings. She wanted to create her own sense of identity. So there were some times I would pick her up after the meeting, and I would love the look. People would look, they were, really? That's your husband? You're married to him? And I just love it, because when people see us, it's just, the contrast it's pretty strong, So, things are cool, and she never wanted to have children. I'm a cancer survivor, and things were, I thought I was the problem, and I went to the doctor, and he said, you can't have children. He said, there was other things you could do, but you can't have children. I said, no problem. And and we're cool with that, right? And we get a dog, and life is good. And then a year and a half ago, I come home. So I was like that. Whatever. I was old. But I come home, and she tells me she's pregnant. I said, wow. I don't think I said, well, but whatever. I said, wow, because we're being recorded. So, but it was, and I need to tell you, it was cool. And we made some decisions, life-changing decisions based on being parents. So, I'm still with the city, but I was in a different capacity. I got involved in union politics, and I was elected president of the union for the city of municipal employees. And then I got reelected a 3-year term, and last year, before all the COVID and all the social unrest hit, we planned on being parents, and my term was up this year. And I said, well, I'm not going to run again. And so I made a decision, And then when COVID hit, and then the social, it just, again, not to talk politics, but the city got really crazy. I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I left with 1 year left on my term, and she was well into her second trimester, and just a tragic accident, and lost the baby. And we had, it was tough, And people said, like, "Are you mad?" And we really weren't mad. We were just like sad, and we were just deeply sad. We weren't mad. I wasn't mad at God. How can I be mad at God? The life I have today, I would have sold myself short 33 years ago. You ask me, And so, and we get through that one day at a time, and that's the benefit. That's what I can share with people over the years. I've seen some terrible things that people have experienced through no fault of their own. And we get through it one day at a time. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous promises, So then when the shutdown came, Zoom came about, and she came up to me the city shut down in March. So I guess it was the second week of March, the third week of March. She said, "You wouldn't do one of them Zoom meetings?" Here I'm 32 years sober, and contempt prior to investigation. Nah, I'm not going to do that. That's not AA. No, I'm not going to do that. Then a week later, she came up to me. She said, "Bobby, you would do one of those Zoom meetings?" And I knew what she was telling me. She was saying that I was acting like an idiot, which is a euphemism for something else, and I ought to get in gear and go to Zoom. And then I start Zooming all over. Typical alcoholic. God forbid I just Zoom in Philadelphia. I'm Zooming in Ireland, Scotland. I'm Zooming all over. And it was pretty cool, but it was nice, it's nice to be back in person, I just had a life beyond my wildest dreams, So, the last 6 or 7 minutes here, listen, I'm not the poster boy of Alcoholics Anonymous. I invite you, come with me for a week. See what type of guy that I am. I know I'm not the man I was 33 years ago. And I'd like to think I'm not the guy I was 3 years ago. And if I am, shame on me. I make mistakes. But making mistakes doesn't get me loaded. It's defending those mistakes or justifying those mistakes that will lead to the arrogance, that will lead to the drink. I'm sober one day at a time. But, that doesn't discount my experiences. But I can get through anything, I got through cancer treatment. I got through 4 years ago, burying my father. Losing a baby. I was just, in and out of relationships over the years. I've gotten through these things one day at a time without picking up a drink, And I make regular attendance of meetings. And the reason I go to meetings because the newcomer doesn't know that I live at 707 Sears Street. That's why I come to meetings. This is where I find them. I have an obligation, just like there were men there for me when I first got sober. So if you were new, and these last few minutes, I don't wish you luck, because luck ain't got nothing to do with it. I don't want you to think like recovery is like a lottery and the wheel and falls on you and today's your day to drink. I hear people say, I did the steps, I still drank. Well, you must have did something wrong, because nowhere does it say go out and buy a 40. There are certain things that I do in the book that tells me that I have a daily reprieve. And that's what it is. And believe me, I went through my evangelical stage. I had the big book and the concordance and the highlighter, and I would have a 30-minute debate with you whether I was recovered or recovering. And obviously with that debate, it would indicate I was neither. I used the big book as a weapon, not as a tool. But now I share my experience, and if you're interested, that's cool. And if you're not interested, that's cool. I move on to the next guy. But I grew up in a neighborhood where most guys, very few went on a formal education after high school. They would get a union book. They'd become a longshoreman or join one of the trades. Or if you weren't arrested by a certain age, you'd become a civil servant, cop, fireman, mailman. But let's say we have a lot of electricians in the neighborhood. So you're new, you get a sponsor. How do you find out who should be your sponsor? Well, you should ask them if they have experienced the steps. And you will hear two things. Yes or no. The person says yes, that's your person. He or she takes you under their wing, you get your experience, and you take a sponsee underneath your wings. It's just like the trades. You show up, you're an apprentice. And you go to school one day a week and you work the job 4 days a week. And then at the end of 4 years, you become a journeyman. It's been working that way since June 10th, 1935, when Bob met Bill, and they both lived the rest of their lives without having another drink, one day at a time. Why need a dirtball from South Philly to come up here and tell you doing any differently? So get a home group, get a sponsor. It's everything. It's prayer. It's your own concept of God. Don't get caught up in that, that religion debate. This is not religion. It's spiritual, and there's a big difference between the two. But it's the whole ball of wax. But, man, if you're here, you got the golden ticket. I mean, most people who have alcoholism die without ever being introduced or hearing of Alcoholics Anonymous. And most people come to AA. Most of us die from alcoholism too. Very few people stay sober. But this group, we're here. And the unique thing about this particular group, as constructed right now, will never meet again. You may come close, but every person in this room, this is it for us. So I stay sober a day at a time. I try to help people a day at a time, and I have a wonderful life a day at a time. I don't worry about tomorrow. It's okay to plan, but you don't get crazy, you don't get preoccupied, you don't get overwhelmed. So it's a wonderful way of life. I thank you for inviting me to participate, to share, and that's it. That's all I got.
Let's thank Bobby one more time. Thank you, Bobby. It's customary for us to form a line after we're done here. Personally thank our speakers. They come here at their own time and expense. Let them know, they're well taken, and you appreciate their time and effort. If you like to hang out with us, don't forget the meeting after the meeting. That's then the meeting before the meeting. Try to get here a little early and hang out with us, right? We solve all the world problems before the meeting, so if you have your world problems, bring them here. We got a nice way of closing. If you care to join us, we'll start with a moment of silence. And if you care to join us, we'll end with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back. If anybody wants to help us clean up a little bit, these